Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the UGASports Live podcast. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by former Georgia head coach Jim Donnan, the main reason you're all here to watch the show, and some other guy named Dayne Young that will kind of just – we have to let him on the show or else we can't do the show. So if you don't have a good producer, then you're kind of out of luck. So he's muscled his way into the show despite our best efforts.
I keep coming back, and it just keeps working out, right? Like that's the sign of a good employee.
But to give head coach, to give Dayne his props, he has spent the last few days out there with the rest of us schlubs, going to interviews, watching talking to the coaches and such, and then actually getting to see some of practice. So I don't know if you talked to Kirby or who talked to Kirby, but this year we've actually been able to see a few minutes of practice, and I must say that as much as I give him hell about not letting us see a public university football team practice, I will say that he has been good about at least 3 days out of the last 6. We've gotten to watch 10, 15 minutes of practice. Now, granted, it's just position drills mostly, but today was a little bit more interesting because we got to see some of the one-on-ones. I got to watch Oscar Delp go up against C.J. Madden and stuff like that. You know, got to see some freshmen out there like Rion Davis going up against Andrew Paul, trying to keep him in pass protection. Granted, they were in pads today for the first time, so it was kind of fun to watch. But Dayne, being that you're the technical guru and coach, you can weigh in here as our elder statesman. Dayne, kind of give me some of the thoughts that stood out to you, because the first thing everybody's going to want to know, and we saw that in the press conference today, who's standing out, who's making a name, who's bringing the heat. And I will say that Glenn Schumann twice told me today, he's like, today's our first day in practice in pads. Slow down. So give me your take, if you would, on some guys that maybe stood out to you.
Yeah, I've been doing so many of these shows that I haven't stood beside a lot of these players in a long time. And so I've just been a little bit surprised, mainly about how big some of these guys are. I didn't realize Robert Beal is the size that he is. Now his age shows. It makes sense why he would be one of the bigger guys on the defensive front. Darius Smith as a true freshman, I think we've all looked at him and said that frame is special. And if he can do the work that he needs to do in the next year or two, sky's the limit for a kid like him. Otherwise, A.D. Mitchell's a little taller than I thought. Georgia's just a big and fast team. Like when coach keeps saying the off the bus mentality, like when you look at this team coming onto the field, they look like a team that can compete for a championship again.
Yeah, I want to go back to coach. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but when I saw in my notes today, I wrote my practice observations. We had 4 other writers put in their practice observations. And in my notes, I wrote down when I went to watch the tight ends, wrote down Darnell Washington is the size of an offensive tackle. I mean, he's not thick like one, but coach, he towers over everybody else. And he's got the arms. I mean, add 30 pounds to him, and that guy lines up at tackle in the NFL. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think he wants to hear that, but he could. I mean, because he's a tight end. But there's no question we have a tremendous size and on both sides of the line of scrimmage and a lot of speed. I think the number one thing that I got out of today, which I wasn't over there to watch practice, I had to go over to do a couple things in the training room. But, there's 32 teams in the NFL. 21 of them had scouts here today. I mean, those guys aren't making their living just screwing around. The fact that they had 21 teams represented the first day we had in pads is pretty damn salient.
Yeah.
To show you what kind of team we have personnel-wise. And usually what happens, they come for an initial look-see, then they'll tell some of their other people about them. Then they'll come back and get a mid-year, and then they'll have some people watch the games. But Georgia's going to be a stopping place for any pro team from now on around. And I had a chance to talk to Scott Pioli, who I have an existing relationship because he's married to Bill Parcells' daughter, Dallas, who used to go on vacations with us. And he was talking about he's working for the NFL Network now. He was a general manager of help with the Falcons and he worked for Belichick for 17 years. And he said, Coach, Georgia's practice, this is a straight out quote now. Georgia's practice is the gold standard for college football right now for evaluation. I mean, come on.
What else can you say after that?
And we've got Green Bay guys saying similar, said, we got the draft when we had the draft and we took White and Quay Walker and took, last year took Stokes. He said, that these guys know how to train to be in the NFL. Now, we might not have quite as many first-round draft choices this year, but the idea is these guys are getting developed. Whoever came up with the idea that Kirby Smart and our staff couldn't develop, that's got to be the most ridiculous statement that anybody's made lately. And
Alabama, Florida, Clemson, anybody that recruits against them tried that line, Coach.
Well, it's not the right one right now. But, when you're in a rebuilding year like Alabama, they have to use something.
Oh, that's a good one. I love it.
But anyhow, I think the one thing that we've talked about since Kirby had the SEC Media Day is the competition level is what you need. I mean, you got to be able to go against players that you're going to see on Saturday, and you got to get better at being able to play your role and to develop your craft. And something I heard Kirby say early on in fall camp, which I used to always tell our team when we were playing against really good teams early. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. But we got a good opponent against Oregon. I get Bo Nix because he played at Auburn. But you got to be ready to play a 4-quarter game just in case you have to. And so many of these teams aren't ready that first game. They come out with a lot of emotion and they play hard and all, but they don't have the conditioning. And last year you saw us win that Clemson game in the 4th quarter with a tremendous drive to take care of the football. And that's something you can point out. We were ready to play. Now they were probably in shape too, but we took the fight to them, and it wasn't a pretty game, but we won that game with conditioning as much as anything else. The same thing with the Alabama game in the 4th quarter at the end of the year. So when it's getting hot out there and you're talking about, well, we're just going to do special teams now, or we're just going to do 7-on-7, or we're going to, you got to fight through every little nook and cranny of practice and get yourself ready. And if you don't out there at Georgia, you're going to be left in the shuffle because there's going to be somebody waiting that wants your position. And you mentioned some of these younger guys. I think where they're going to really surface right now to get on the field is special teams. A guy like Chris Smith with his kind of reminds you looking on the hoof like like Walker did when he was a freshman and he was on the kickoff team. And, things like that give you a chance to get in the heat of battle and get some kind of the cobwebs off and get used to it. And then when you get a chance to go in some mop-up roles, you're ready to go.
What I've been doing when I've been out there, Roddy, is I look around and I see, could Georgia's 6th receiver be counted on in a crucial situation in an SEC game? Could Georgia's 5th defensive end be someone that makes a difference? Because I looked at Georgia-Alabama in the national championship game, and even SEC as well. It was as much as talent, like top-end talent is always going to win if they're out there. But you have to have depth for when these injuries happen. And the way that college football is changing, they're only going to add more games.
Yeah,
or they're only going to play tough for opponents.
You see in that game, Alabama had 2 second-team corners, and it hurt them. Had some second-team receivers. We were playing without Adam Anderson. It hurt us. I mean, it's just different. But you got to develop depth, and you got to be able to use that depth accordingly. But I will say this, that the one thing that I feel good about our team, and I told a couple people this, I think Roddy and I, when he was taking me to a doctor the other day, I feel like when a team has one area that might be a little bit stronger than the other, like last year, our defense, our offense knew that if we could get some points on the board, it's going to be hard for people to score on our defense, nation's leading defense against the score. The same thing's going to be true. We averaged, I don't know how many points last year. Brent Rollins was talking about we're going to have more offense this year production-wise. So our defense is going to be playing out there when they don't have to shut people down cold. They're going to have a lot of help. And we're going to have a tremendous special teams a return game. I see some of these guys catching punts and kickoffs and really got to burst to hit that first gash. If you can get through that first gash, then it's one-on-one with somebody. So, and we got to temper this enthusiasm with a little realism. I mean, hey.
I got some realism coming.
It's 12. There's 12. 12 game schedule. Things can happen and all that, but you got a veteran quarterback. You got 3 of the top 10 players in the country in Walker, Ringo, and Bowers. I mean, Carter. I want Walker to come back too. I mean, he looked so good the other night. But you got – and that's another guy. I keep talking about him. I saw him hit the sled the first day out there, and I really felt sorry for the sled. Just jack it now. I mean, people will hit that sled and it'll go up, but it just sounds like it's getting ready to break.
You're saying Ron Corson went to go treat the sled after?
No, I mean, I'm just telling you that sled does not want to see 88. It is and neither do any of the offensive linemen. You just don't want to see the guy.
It's like trying to block a Buick, coach.
He's a stud. If there's ever been a stud lined up here, he is one, and he's a force. And that forcing unit behind him has got some really top-end speed. I mean, there's some flat-out flyers back there that can run to the football. So we're going to be you can find a lot of things wrong with any team, that's for sure at this point. But I like our competitiveness. I like our togetherness. I like the fact they got a chip on their shoulder, wanting everybody to, everybody's kind of national media is kind of just pushing us to the side, We'll go play Ohio State. We'll go play Alabama. We'll play them.
We're talking about playing, and you said to temper some of that enthusiasm or optimism. I'm going to temper that with some few bits from our notes today. So folks who are not members of UGASports.com, you're going to get a rare insight into some of the stuff that we were able to see out there. Normally, this is only behind the paywall at UGASports.com, but I'm going to go through some of it here.
While you do that, I'm going to quickly scroll through. I'm not going to leave it on the page. People can see. I just want people to see the quantity of notes, and this has been every media session at practice right now. So you do that. I'm going to show people what it looks like, so then they can go subscribe.
Well, and see some garbage stuff y'all are talking here about bad about the dogs.
Well, not bad stuff. It's just some things I wanted. My point is, Kirby Smart is not. I mean, they look like they could play Oregon tomorrow, to my untrained eye. But when you have Kirby on that headset and you hear some of the stuff he's been calling out,
well, he just does that for y'all out there. That's show.
Well, I'm going to mention it anyway, so you can just relax for a second, because he said he called out Kyrus Jackson. Good job, Kyrus. Good job. But then one of his stars, she's like, what am I looking at, Nolan Smith? He didn't say no. He just calls him Nolan. He calls everybody by their name.
He's going to fire Nolan Smith then. Okay. Let's get his ass out of here.
Yeah, what about looking at? He goes, quality reps. Nolan, quality reps. So in other words, he's pushing everybody. He's like, come on, get your big butt down. $1 million
to do it. That's what he does, man.
Yeah,
y'all react to everything he says. Shit, fire.
I'm just trying to share, Coach.
All right, share it then. What else did he say?
They said he got after Malachi trying to help him. It's like, why are you chasing him in there? So the techniques of, where are you going here on that play? Uzo Deribe.
Wow. Nick Saban and them do that at all?
Everybody does, Coach. That's the whole point.
Let me hear it then. I'm taking your thunder. Go ahead.
Yeah. He was going after he was congratulating Arian Smith on a long pass. It was like, good job there. And good job, JB, going after Javon Bullard, telling him good job on stuff he did. But then he's busted some other guys like Darnell and Arik. So if you do good, Kirby sees it. If you do bad, Kirby sees it. So the motivation, you can't go out there and coast. I mean, if Jalen Carter slacks off, he's going to hear about it from Kirby. But at the same time, if you do well, Kirby's going to call you out where everybody can hear it. So
yeah, he doesn't play favorites. That's right.
No, I guess that's my point. And nobody's made it. I mean, even
I've never heard him ever say anything to Jalen though. He don't make him mad.
Yeah, exactly. But
I think the line that he said that to
I saw
me.
a player one time at a practice when I was doing TV pick up a coach, and the coach says, "Put me down, put me down." The coach was getting on him, and he just grabbed him. He said, "Put me down, Calvin. Put me down."
Roddy, I think what you're getting at, though, is just like kind of hearing some of the motivational techniques. Not that a lot of these guys need a lot of that, but like it's a long camp. And so what are coaches saying to keep guys focused? And my favorite one that I heard as I've been around practices was reminding them that on special teams drills, that in the NFL, a minimum contract is $705,000 for the upcoming season. So if you do well at special teams, you can go make minimum $705,000 in a year. Like, I think that's a really cool technique to use. I'm sure others do it too, but I haven't heard that before.
No, he does that. That was a good one. I liked getting after everybody. But if you were to listen to Kirby, kind of the overall, because he's a coach. So again, no one's made it. And if you're out there for 15 minutes, you're like, these guys will never beat anybody. They're terrible. There's some good plays here and there, but Kirby's just mad at everybody. But then come to find out, it's like, oh, well, he is. When you look at it in the overall, it's like, oh, well, he did congratulate Arian Smith here for that touchdown catch. He ripped Eric Gilbert for not running after a catch, but on the next play when the guy scored a touchdown, he shouted him out. So they look to like I say, the untrained eye, like they could beat anybody. But at the same time, I mean, it's 5 days in. So I'm with you, Coach. There's a huge amount of optimism, but because we're watching them against air. Everybody looks good against air.
Yeah,
Kirby sees what they're doing wrong and lets everybody know.
You got to feed the fans and let them hear it. But I'm not a real big proponent of the microphone, but
it helps us because we don't know what's going on out there half the time.
Some coaches like it because it reaches everybody, and Kirby seems to have a good feel for it. So the only thing I don't like about it is sometimes guys don't need to know why somebody's making a mistake. It's just between the coach and but the whole anything that happens, including the people up on Lumpkin, know what happens every time things are going on here.
That's true. You could sit outside the Coliseum and catch a lot of notes sometimes. I kind of want to go through some of the guys that stood out earlier today. You mentioned Darius Smith. Kid looks fantastic, just tall. Noah Smith looks ridiculous and just really in shape.
Coach, for an edge rusher, is there a height that you want? Because it seems like a lot of these guys have been taller in recent years.
Yeah, he's going to be – he got long arms and swim technique. I think he's going to be special teams. I just don't see – he's got too many people ahead of him. I mean, among which are Marvin Jones.
I was just about to mention him.
Marvin's ahead of him, and Chris, he can definitely Darius Smith be a big special teams guy, and he might come after a couple more days. He might move on up on that, but I tell you the real deal is Saturday will be the first scrimmage, and it'll be a real telltale sign of where we are and where we got to go from there. I mean, it's the first time you've seen these guys 11 on 11 putting guys on the ground. They've been playing thud, which is the rules. You can't put guys on the ground now. So that'll be that. And then next Saturday, the 20th, they'll have the last scrimmage. And then the next one will be kind of a dress rehearsal.
Yeah. You mentioned Marvin Jones Jr., Coach, today out there being practice 6, I believe. Kind of looked a little bit lost, but C.J. Madden looked like he knew what he was doing. Again, this is just they're going through drills that some of these guys haven't seen before.
Yeah,
but
he
looks amazing.
You should be a little lost because the guy's never been on a college campus till June 1st. So I mean, it's different. But he definitely, if you're going to get lost, he'd be a guy you'd want to be found with.
He's going to be found quick enough. We got to watch I mentioned Nolan Smith and Darnell Washington going head to head. Nolan Smith almost had an interception. It went through his hands. He played the coverage fantastically and had Darnell Washington dead to rights, stepped in front of him. The ball went through his hands. He laughed at. I mean, he was mad that he dropped it, but he kind of laughed, and that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a good call there by you. But here's the thing, and I'm devil's advocate. If you can't cover a guy in a drill like that, you as sure as hell ain't gonna cover him in the game on 11 on 11. He knows what he's gonna do. It's a pass drill. He's dropping in the coverage, and he better be able to cover him because they're the only three people out on the field: the quarterback, the tight end, and the defensive end.
Well, this drill had an inside linebacker and a running back coach, and so they didn't know which one was going out and which one was staying home.
Yeah, but
instantly, pretty much,
But his job is to cover the tight end, regardless of where it goes.
Regardless of what he does, exactly.
And the linebacker is to cover the back.
But
he did a good job with it, that's for sure.
He did. Then on the next play, I felt bad for Oscar Delp because Oscar Delp had to block him from trying to get to Gunnar Stockton. And Oscar Delp did not succeed in blocking him to getting through there. But I want to give you a shout out. You mentioned Jalen Walker a bunch of times, Coach. Branson Robinson, the freshman running back, was in there trying to block him to get to the quarterback, and that linebacker Walker just tore right through him. I mean, that kid is fast.
I could see him and Mikael Williams and Everett just being three freshmen get out there real quick.
And I'll give a little shout out to poor CJ Madden. He was having a tough time going up against Brock Bowers, but because Brock was blocking pretty good. But I'll give Madden some credit on some of the other reps. He did really well. So the point being, there's a lot of stuff like that. We have kind of the blow by blow and the details there.
Yeah, that's good.
So there's a lot of fun stuff like that you folks can check out. But
I wish Brock Bowers' mother would just call him home and say, "Look, you need to come home for a couple of weeks and meet us at the Oregon game." God, that guy's so intent. I mean, he plays every down like it's so. I mean, I know he's not gonna get hurt, but it's just is anybody ready to play? That guy's ready.
He is.
He and Carter and Ringo go play tomorrow.
Exactly. So those are guys I see when I'm like they could play tomorrow, but then Kirby's over there. Hey, you messed up on this. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
So they're going to mess up in games too. They're not going to be perfect, and Kirby wants them to get better in every way he can.
Yeah, I mean, you're always getting challenged out there. That's when you guys are getting to hear that. That's good.
Yeah, so it does bring it home a lot more.
Challenging y'all to be in better shape when you're walking out there.
Jeez, no.
Talk about it.
Pick on this team, Coach. Even the punters and kickers are yoked. So,
really? You thought Leslie was yoked?
Of course, he's 200 yards away. We don't get to see them when they're out there. But I'll say Brett Seether. That kid's even put on some weight. And
Stetson.
Stetson's got guns now. He's all muscled up.
George Bobo today, Mike's dad. He's over here. And Drew's playing center now. He moved him to center, and he's going to do a good job there, Mike's son. But he was talking about when he was when Stetson was in the 9th grade, he came over to Furman's camp. Bobby Lamb was the coach. And he said that it's the first time he ever saw Stetson. And said he just knew right then the guy was a quarterback. And he was helping him do some drills and stuff. And amazing how it's kind of the way it's all evolved. Now Mike's here and George's watching practice, but that was pretty cool.
That was Mike was watching the tight ends today. So Todd Harley was coaching tight ends, and Mike was sitting there with that Mike Bobo look, just taking notes. And I'm sure that when the two of them walk off,
he's an analyst. He can't really coach.
That's what I'm saying. He was just watching. But I'm when they get off the field, I'm sure he's gonna be like, "Hey Todd, here's my notes." So,
Mike's gonna be similar thing to what Will was doing until he ended up coaching last year.
Exactly. That was pretty impressive. We were able to speak to two defensive coordinators today, and we got some clips from that. Before we get there, I want to mention our friends over at Dead Soxy, one of our premier podcast sponsors. I didn't mention sponsors when we first started, but I want to mention them now because we're less than 4 weeks away from kickoff. So you're going to go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You're going to be taking on Oregon. Georgia's going to wear red. Oregon's going to wear green. We reported that on the board because a lot of people were having questions about it. They thought Georgia might be wearing white. They're wearing red. So you're going to have these red and green, some Christmassy colors. But if you don't want to look terrible, then you need to buy some Dead Soxy socks. Get the Georgia style. Get the get the championship ones from our friends over at the 7-6 Apparel. They partnered with Dead Soxy to create some Georgia championship socks. But if you go to just deadsoxy.com, they have fantastic socks from Georgia for LSU fans, for Alabama fans, for Ole Miss fans. So check them out when you get a chance. But also the 7-6 partnering up with them is pretty good. And you can partner up with them too if you have a business. If we wanted to have some UGA sports socks, we could get that put on a fantastic sock that we can give away. So maybe we'll do that for our next promotion. But they're really comfortable socks. They feel great. They even got retros. Look at those retros. Those are pretty good. And I also mention our friends over at Academic Brewing Company, mainly because they need help. They have full and part-time openings for all the back of house positions. They had some for the front of house positions. In other words, they are growing and they're doing more and more stuff. Great pay out there. I've seen some of the stuff they're offering. It's pretty sharp. So check out our friends at Academic Brewing Company if you need a job. And also they have some new beers out there, especially the one I like called Lumberjacked. It's got this giant lumberjack on the front. It's a new collaboration with their friends at Lumberjacks. It's a sweet cherry limeade blonde ale. It has a taste of vanilla and hits like an absolute bullseye. So it's 5.4 alcohol by volume. So pretty fun drink there. Try it when you get a chance. But that's Lumberjacked from Academia Brewing Company. And of course, it's Tuesday night, so they're going through their Trivia Tuesdays. There'll be Wine Wednesdays, live music on Thursdays, and of course the beer and biscuit brunch coming this weekend. So check out Academia Brewing Company when you get a chance. All right, so we spoke to two defensive coordinators today. We didn't know exactly who we were going to get. I'd heard that it would be Glenn Schumann today. We got Glenn Schumann. Great to hear from him. The surprise was when they brought out Will Muschamp right after him. So it was kind of somewhat a surprise and a true surprise. So, Dayne, you want to set those up for us?
Yeah, so what I want to do first is we'll start with Glenn Schumann because, Coach, I know you like to get into the weeds here of how Georgia does things and philosophies. And he got a question about Georgia's star position and how it uses it and how that correlates to inside linebacker. And I thought his answer was pretty salient.
Well, I think if you watch us play in nickel, if you look at what our star is really a slot corner, which is really how most of the National Football League plays their nickels. So I think we're asking them to be inside linebackers, right? Which in today's day and age of football isn't really a box linebacker anymore. It's an off-ball linebacker. So the whole room knows that in order to be successful, you have to be able to blitz, you have to be able to cover, you have to be able to play in space, right? All those factors, traits that in the old school days of 4-3 football, you would say, oh, that's what an outside linebacker does, right? That's basically what you're asking from the whole room.
All right, Coach, explain that to me, what that means and how it's changed.
What we're seeing now, instead of conventional tight end, flanker, wide receiver, now you're looking at two wides, a tight end, and another wide. So somebody's got to cover that slot receiver and whether it's 2x2 or 3x1. So it's hard for a linebacker to do that and still play the run. So you usually put in an extra defensive back. So instead of the star being a Sam backer, like a strong side backer, like a Leonard Floyd or somebody like that, you put in a William Poole who is a fifth defensive back, and that's why they call it the star position, because you can be a safety or you can be a linebacker. And the idea is if it's conventional offense where they need to be worried about the run, like a lot of these teams first down, then you might have a linebacker in there. But now I would say we're 80% with a secondary guy in there most of the time.
Just provides versatility then.
Right. You got to be able to, which you mentioned, blitz. At the last second, you just line up and look like you're going to play coverage, and then you come off the edge, and then the end drops off into that position maybe, or or the free safety comes over and plays man on that slot. So there's all kind of coverages you can run with a defensive back in there that you couldn't with maybe a linebacker, because they're just not used to going deep with those guys. And you see, for instance, Alabama, when they lost to Ohio State when they played in the Sugar Bowl, beside having the great running back in Ezekiel Elliott, they wore Alabama out in the slot receiver situation. I mean, they didn't have a guy physically good enough to cover all the slot backs that Ohio State had. And from that point on, Kirby and Nick and all the staff, they studied Ohio State and talked to them about how they attacked them. And that's when they made that really big move to having the extra defensive back. That's a little history lesson for you.
I didn't know that.
I wonder when it became so important to have that star guy there, because it seems like Georgia's in that has that star out there all the time. And I remember it was big news when they started moving Adam Anderson over to that. Like, wow.
Well, the thing that Adam was, with his long arms, could contain the guy and get his hands on him and disrupt him enough so you could feed him off onto the safety. But if you don't engage that guy and he's down on the safety, then you got a fast break like basketball. And then the other position, which when they go to dime, as they call it, the money position. I don't know how that jargon got there, but that would be taking the weak side linebacker out of the game and putting the other defensive back in, to have 6 defensive backs in and 1 linebacker.
Well, we're going to stick with Glenn Schumann here because Georgia fans haven't heard a lot from him since he's been at Georgia, and he was Kirby Smart's first hire. So I think people kind of want to hear what he has to say. Schumann was asked, do you have desires to be a head coach? Most every assistant says yes, but here's how he said yes.
The thing I tried to do when I was a GA, right, is always think about how I can be the best GA and whatever that was. And then it ended up being something where I became, a slightly higher role, still support staff. And then I just tried to do that job the best I could. And so I've done that since I've been here. And I really try not to be like too forward thinking. There's times and places for that. But ultimately, people don't, that quote that Coach Smart had last year before training camp about, success coming to those who are too busy to be looking for it. It's a very real quote.
I'd say so, because it worked out for Dan Lanning.
Yeah, and, it's pretty obvious there that Glenn's good on his feet, very intelligent. His dad was a tremendous coach. He worked with Mike Cavan and Chris Silpo, 2 coaches that everybody in Georgia knows about. He was with Mike at East Tennessee, with Coach Silpo at Tulane and various other places. UAB, very outstanding coach, and he grew up as a young man watching his dad coach and learned a lot about it. And you've got Muschamp's dad was a coach, Bobo's was a coach, Coach Smart's dad was a coach. So, it's been in their family for a long time. I want to wish a happy birthday to the head coach today, Mary Beth Smart. Happy birthday. That's awesome. And from a sad perspective, one of our big vent supporters, Frank Fowler down in Hilton Head, lost his wife today after a long battle with illness. And our thoughts and prayers are with Frank. He's a good supporter. He's always calling up my friend Nelson Bowers and telling him what he hears that Roddy and you guys report. And then Nelson calls me and asks me if it's true, and I say no.
Our condolences to Frank.
I don't ever know what's true or not. You guys got all the scoop, but we got so many good supporters like Frank, and just want everybody to know. Frank to know we're thinking about him.
That's tough. Our condolences to Frank and his family. That's just brutal. And then Dayne, you had a couple other comments there, but I want to give a quick take on Glenn Schumann. It was tough to hear him today. His voice was wore out, and the first thing he did was apologize for his voice because it's day 5 of camp. It's just he's been yelling, and
he didn't get the microphone like Kirby.
No. But then Will Muschamp came on, and we had Will Muschamp. Will's fine, but the funny thing is, I don't hear Glenn Schumann screaming a whole lot, but I hear Will Muschamp Will Muschamp missed his calling as a drill sergeant because that guy's voice just cuts through the air, and he was
Coach
chewing.
Boone, that's his name, Coach Boone.
He was getting on to one of the freshmen defensive backs, who's having a hard time, and I won't even get into why. But that is, I will say, I started talking about Uzo Deribe earlier. And, Coach, I will say that there's a lot of new faces out there, but everything we're hearing about Fran Brown has been incredibly optimistic, not only from a recruiting standpoint, but from how even Will Muschamp and Coach Schumann talked about him. Watching Uzo Deribe coach the outside linebackers has been impressive from a technique standpoint. And hearing how Will Muschamp, who's been so successful as a head coach and as a defensive coordinator, my point being, you mentioned the development of these players. They're not just out there yelling at these guys to move around, go faster, stuff like that. This week has been an absolute masterclass when it comes to learning techniques,
right,
reasons, instruction, why you do this. I mean, they had Brian McClendon was jumping on. They had a trips formation, and he just did not like the way that those wide receivers were lined up. And he goes over there and moves them around, and like, this is how you line up.
It's a real
good stuff.
Distinct place. That half yard can make a difference in the separation of the zone by your alignment. But I think
He was serious.
The advantage.
It was life and death.
The advantage our younger coaches have is the experience that Kirby and Muschamp bring to the table as far as practice organization, drills to help complement you, learning the total defense. Scott being with Kirby now for 4 years and knowing how the front meshes with the coverages, and that continuity helps us. And then bringing in some new ideas with Fran and the secondary on technique. So I thought both Muschamp and Schumann did a good job of explaining that even though they're in more of a demonstrative role of being the coordinators, their job is to coach the coaches too within the scheme, and it's a collaborative effort of all of them having ideas, studying the tape, what's the best way to rush the passer, what's their best rushes here. And the way you break down the game plan, certain coaches have different elements. Like one guy might be responsible for second down rushes, another one and they'll study all second downs. And then when they all get in there, they bring it together and then talk about it, because the coordinator can't watch every down and distance and then all he's going to do is look at everything and then put it all together after they suggest it. So, but each guy is kind of like, putting together a lesson plan for a teacher. They got to have all these different things. And then Kirby's looking at the whole shooting match, offense and defense, how it's going to blend together. And you do the same thing with Monk, and he'll maybe give Coach McGee, he'll have short yardage. Coach Searles might have goal line. Third down passes might be Coach Brian McClendon. It's all based, Hartley have something else, but you bring the ideas together, and then it's up to Coach to call them based on what they think the defense is going to be in. Those guys are studying those down and distance tendencies. It's not just a crapshoot. What are they going to be in? The percentage of them being in this is that, but they'll change it up. But that's why everybody's making 800,000.
Yeah, true.
Muschamp also talked about how important it is to have players that are leaders that step up and offer the instruction to the younger guys, because that just hits differently rather than when a coach does it. Here's Muschamp.
An older player sit down with a younger player. That's vitally important for your progress and development of a young player. And I saw it last night. Billy Poole grabs Marcus Washington, and I'm trying to explain something to Marcus, and Billy goes, "Coach, I got it." Which Bill Poole graduated 2 days ago, so that's a heck of a deal too. But when you see those sort of things, again, they get tired of Coach Muschamp sometimes, but they'll listen to a peer. And that's really, really important to have as you kind of continue to work your way in the program and the culture that you create. And again, I credit Coach Smart and the staff for that.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. One of the best things I always told every player is you're going to get quality reps yourself, but also watch the rep of the guy in front of you and coach him up what is he doing right and what is he doing wrong, and what can I do that he did that's going to help me, and what am I going to do that he didn't do right to make sure I don't do that myself. So it's a copycat deal, and the more technique you can learn, the better you're going to be, because you're going to go against very athletic players in this league. I mean, even the worst teams have good athletes, but proper technique gets you by there. It's just why some boxers win and others don't. I mean, they got technique. And so I think knowledge of assignment, proper technique. I'll say that till I go to my grave. If you know what you're doing when you go to the line, a confused player can't play. You know what you're going to do, and then you know the technique you're going to use, you got a chance. But sometimes you might get out-athleted, though. I mean, the guy's a better athlete than you, but there's no reason for you not to know exactly what to do.
Yep, and how to do it. Good to see William Poole graduating. Guy's been around a good time.
Billy Poole. I've never heard Billy.
Yeah, I hadn't heard him. That's a new name there, Billy Poole. I wonder if he's any kin to Bumper Poole. But,
as many tackles as Bumper did, that'd be great. But shout out to him, and good job taking young Mr. Washington under the wing there to get him out from underneath Coach Boom, who was chewing his butt the other day, just like he does everybody. So, hey, I'll yell at him this time. You leave him alone for a minute.
Yeah, I think you got to get their attention. That's for sure.
Yeah. So
you just think about this though. When a guy goes into a room with Will Muschamp, I mean, here's a guy that's been on national championship teams as a coordinator, been a head coach in the SEC. He's got a lot of firepower there, and you know when he's like E.F. Hutton, when he's talking, he's making a lot of good sense, and he really has seen about everything. I mean,
yeah.
And you couple that with Kirby, who I don't think you could ever have two more experienced secondary guys on any staff, college or pro.
Well, and with that experience, Muschamp was asked about Glenn Schumann's role as co-defensive coordinator, I think is what it is. He also didn't really care about the title. He kind of joked about that. Said, I've been called a lot of things, just saying I don't really acknowledge what my title is either. Here's what Muschamp had to say about Schumann and what he and Kirby Smart have built in terms of stability at Georgia.
Glenn's promotion, in my opinion, is very well deserved. He's an outstanding football coach. He's extremely bright. He has a great rapport with his players. And you really look at Coach Smart's going into the 7th season here at Georgia. The two longest tenured coaches are Glenn and Dale McGee. And you really look over those 7 years, consistency of their position groups probably is the best that's been here in those 7 years.
I agree with that. Linebacker and running back. I mean, I saw ESPN come out and deal with and called Georgia linebacker U. And you just look at the guys we put out, and Lynn's had a lot to do with recruiting those guys. And but from a standpoint of titles, we're not big on titles, but to justify the salaries, it's easier to do that, to pay that kind of salary if a guy's got a title like that. But like we said before, he's been head coach, assistant head coach, coach in waiting. He's been about every kind of coach you want, stage coach.
Well, speaking of, when whoever the reporter was asked that question, he's like, you've been this, you've been that. He goes, yeah, I've been called a lot of things. I just about fell down. I'm like, he's funny. He had us rolling.
Well, we got some questions here. We got this. You did a good job with the sound bites there. Is that the last one?
That's it. Before we get to the questions, though, I want to tell everybody that today is Tuesday, and it's normally when we talk on Tuesdays about Your Pie, we're like, go order your pizzas from Your Pie, order your salad, order your sandwich, order whatever you want from Your Pie. Do it on Tuesday because you get double points on their app. The free apps result in free pizzas and such. It's a little late, 8:45. Might be a little tough to get an order in today, but you have the whole week. But when you get a chance to order, be it late tonight, tomorrow, next week, Saturday, there's a couple pizzas out there or a couple of new things I want you to try from Your Pie, especially that Cubano pizza, the one that has the olive oil, the mozzarella cheese, the ham, bacon. spicy Dijon sauce, the Texas Pete hot sauce on it, feta cheese, pickles. Oh, and their house pickled jalapenos. I just want a jar of those. I don't need much, Drew French. Just give me a jar of those so I can eat them on all my stuff. They're really, really good. And of course, for myself, everyone knows I'm a key lime pie guy. They have a key lime cream pie gelato over there that I've not had a chance to try yet. I just saw it the other day. Key lime cream pie gelato. I'm going to have to check that out. So point being, there's a lot of good stuff going on at Your Pie. If you can't get over there on a Tuesday, try any other day of the week, but always remember to use the app to get your orders in quickly. Also want to mention our friends over at Athens Ford. They sponsor this website. They sponsor the watch-along show that we do. They sponsor the podcast. So without them, we'd be in a world of hurt, but they take great care of us. They also take great care of their customers. So whenever you have a chance and you need a new or pre-owned vehicle, swing by Athens Ford. And some of the reviews they get, there was one person sent one in and says, I met Jesus when another dealership did not meet my expectations. The first time he didn't have what I wanted, but he did not try to push me towards something else, which my wife and I really appreciated. That is what brought us back within an hour to look and buy a truck that we didn't know we wanted but fell in love with. Everyone we came in contact with was a very pleasant experience, and we did not feel pressured to do anything. One of the best buying experiences we have ever had. That's via Dealer Rater. That's somebody writing about Jesus over at Athens Ford. So when you get a chance, that's the type of reviews you will see all over their dealer ratings. So check it out. And if you want to see that Ford F-150 Lightning, the demo, they have one in the showroom right now. So you can go check out the EV, the battery-powered F-150 Lightning demo. And, of course, if you want a 2023 standard 150, now's the time to go get on the wait list over there because you can go ahead and put your order in on one. So hit up Athens Ford when you get a chance.
Question from Jason G17. What are things that coaches do from year to year to make fall camp different?
Ooh, good one.
Well, you got to keep their interest up, that's for sure, because it is a grind. I mean, there's no easy way out about it. I mean, you kind of lose your sense of time. You just look such. You're filling out scripts and you're watching the tape of the night before, the day before, and then you're starting over again. And the players, like tonight, they finish practice and then they go eat, and then they have 2 special teams meetings, and then they have the speaker, I think Shep, speaking to them tonight, and then they have, the installation of the next day, and then they go tomorrow. They're moving out of the dorm. I think tomorrow's their day off. And they'll still have a couple meetings, but you try to keep their attention up and, change up the practice a little bit. Maybe have, instead of doing a certain part, maybe play overtime at the end of practice, or just do 2-point plays, or, Saturday after practice, they're going to have a watermelon for everybody. That's something we started a tradition here 25 years ago, and they've done it every year since. And they'll have the watermelon for them after practice, and they all go down there. And it's kind of morale. And then sometimes they'll have an ice cream truck come by there, and then some days they'll have some go-go girls. No, they don't have.
That'll keep up the interest.
It's just it's a grind, and everybody. I used to tell our players when they started feeling sorry for themselves, hey, I'm sure Florida and Tennessee aren't practicing today. They're taking the day off. I mean, don't give yourself too much credit for working hard. You got to do it. You got to prepare yourself for conditioning, and you got to prepare yourself for the different styles of attack. That's why we're not really talking about Auburn. We're looking at everybody we play here the first couple of weeks, but you got to learn your own system first, and that's what we're doing right now, and we're going good against good too. When they call up to start practice on any drills, 1 goes against 1. I mean, there's not any pussyfooting around out there. You don't go 1s versus 3s or 2 versus 3. It's 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2 the whole time. It's just gut wrenching.
That keeps your attention. That's why you want Brock Bowers to go home for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I was just kidding about that. But I tell you one thing that they do, morale. I mean, the first night they had steak and lobster. Last night they had crab legs and prime rib. I mean, they keep them going there with some pretty good groceries too. That doesn't hurt.
Wow.
From Pede Tech One,
You
have you
wouldn't
seen?
know that if you watched any other show? Would you know what they had to eat?
No, nobody would know that.
I usually
didn't
know what movie they're watching based on Roddy's 3-2-1 report.
Well, is he having a movie this week? They going Friday night, or are they going out?
I don't know if a 3-2-1 report's happened yet, but
No, but they will probably practice it. Remember the last 2 years
Yeah, they
before
start practicing the real. But they might not do it this week. They might not do it this week because they've been in the dorm anyhow. But they might do it just to make sure they're all together and not worried about getting anything happening the night before the scrimmage. You know, they could probably go watch Who Messed in My Saddlebag starring Victor Manure. But
question from Pete.
It's a terrible joke.
From Pete Tech One, have you seen any walk-ons not named Dan Jackson or Stetson Bennett that might make an impact? I will remind you, Pete Tech One, Stetson Bennett not a walk-on anymore.
I don't think Jackson is either. You know, there's some good-looking kids out there that aren't. I don't know what this collective and I mean, we got Kirby said we had 95 people getting some kind of at SEC Media Days, getting some kind of NIL. So I'm sure that's applied toward their scholarship. So I haven't anybody in particular. I can't mention anybody because I haven't really watched practice, but I don't know. Do you know any, Roddy?
I would go with Mikai Muse, MEWS.
Receiver.
That guy's been showing up a lot. Again, it's only the time that we're out there, but
Is he number 83?
I'd have to go back and look him up. I just
I
remember
think 83 is that kid from Prince, maybe.
Yeah, and but I saw Luke Bennett out there doing a little bit of stuff. You know, the younger
Muse is
brother.
87.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His name has popped up a lot just from the drills that we've been watching. So that's a guy who I'm kind of interested in. Especially, remember, you saw how well Savon Clark did last year and how he kind of stepped up there. And
Yeah, you'll see that Saturday. They got to have some more receivers step up, and just because you don't have enough to give it scrimmage, and he'll have 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, and then threes will go. They'll scrimmage the heck out of threes because they want to see how these guys are doing, you know, to evaluate the freshmen. So, and it takes a little heat off the first teams where they're not just going out there the whole time. So you'll see. I mean, probably, and then you add the where all the people get all fired up. Well, they threw 4 touchdown passes. Well, they were all 10-yard passes in the red zone when they're practicing into practice. So hopefully they'll throw some Saturday, some long balls.
From Dog Bite You says, in the closing seconds of the 1997 game at Tennessee, what was Coach Donnan yelling at Phil Fulmer? And did Fulmer actually hear him? Coach D's face was red. Coach was also upset earlier in the game after a fake field goal a couple yards short on 4th and long.
I was yelling at them for running up the score. The game was over, and they were checking off, throwing the ball. I just didn't think they needed to be doing that, and I let him know what I thought about it. It's a big deal because they say his daughter was walking out there with him, and I didn't say anything really that bad word-wise, but I was mad about it. And, you know, people have yelled at me before for doing stuff like that. But, hey, that's – good Lord, what is that, 1997?
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to know what was actually said that we don't hear about, you know.
I said,
Charlotte Dog said
field goal because they said we had the guy in motion toward the line of scrimmage, and he wasn't.
Charlotte Dog says, Coach, what's your national top 5 heading into this season?
Ooh,
Basketball or football?
North Carolina would be in basketball.
Oh, it is a rebuilding year for them. Although their NIL stepped up to get some of those guys to come back. I think any combination of Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, those four, probably Baylor maybe. Those are the five that really kind of catch my attention.
Simplicity asks, is Lad McConkey in the same mold as Hunter Renfro physically? And then he also asks, can Munden and Johnson be the guys? Those are tough shoes to fill.
I think he's better than Renfro from a speed perspective. I don't know if he's as strong, and he's a little different route runner because most of the stuff that Hunter did was underneath, whereas Ladd is more of a deep slot going down the middle, busting the coverage if they free safety overplays, and but he can run the crossing route. And he's good on the bubble screens. He's so quick. I said this before, and I'll say it again. He could have played on any team I ever coached anywhere. Lad McConkey could have played at Oklahoma, Marshall, Florida State, North Carolina, Missouri. He's a player. And Monken's high on him too. We got him in mid. I tell you, number 8, Blaylock, having a big fall. If he can keep it up, he's going to be big help to us.
From J Fields 93, Coach, how many touchdowns do you think Stetson will throw this year? I'm thinking somewhere between 18 and 33, which was his final score.
Is that all? Why don't you narrow it down a little bit?
Because that's the national championship final score from
I would say over 30 in the first 3 games. I would say close to 30 just because we got, he threw 5 against UAB in the first half. I think we can have a lot of big balls. Just because, as we mentioned last week, you get play actions where you make all your money on the big touchdowns. I think we'd be a great play action team.
Let's
2
go.
12 games is at least 24. So,
What's that?
So if you're just throwing 2 a game, you're going to get 24, and then you get the rest of the, hopefully a SEC championship game, a playoff game, a national title game. Now you're looking at just a minimum 2 passes, and we're at 30 right there. So it adds up quick.
Yeah, I'd say 30.
We asked that Dumas Johnson, Smile Mondon question.
Oh yeah, both those guys are just really technicians. They know the defense. Munden, as Kirby has mentioned, is one of the better athletes we've had here. The guy's angular. He can really run. He's not as big as Quay Walker, but he's got the same kind of speed as Roquan. Roquan's asking to get traded. He doesn't think they're coming with the money for him. So, but Munden is just a really good athlete. And Walker, man, he's thick and can run too. We got a good linebacker room.
Yeah, I think go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Because after this, we're going to do a speed round and get through some stuff, and then we have a fun question at the end.
I would say Smile was one of the guys that when people would look at Nakobe Dean and they're like, "Hey, he's a little small." You don't say that about Smile. That's a big boy. And to be able to run I don't know that he's as fast as those guys. Coach, you know better than I do. But when you look at him, that's it. And everybody talks about Dumas Johnson, Pop as they call him, being a smart guy. And remember, he broke on the scene last year with that little leaked video of him jumping up and snatching an interception out of the air. And then, of course, he had 1 or 2 during the season. So,
yeah, he had one to the house. But he knows he's got an eye for the ball. He can.
Exactly.
And whoever's lining up behind Carter is going to look good.
Look great, yeah.
All right, Coach, let's get some quick answers here, and then we'll end with the fun one.
Of all the things I've ever said on this program, I just cannot overstate the ability that guy has as a football player. He's in the – I guess you have 100 percentile. He's in the 1 percentile of football players I've ever been around anywhere.
Jesus.
He's just – man-child.
You got a bunch of Hall of Famers, Coach.
He's got to do that, but he's just quick, play tight end. I'm looking for him to catch a couple touchdowns. Run tight end first.
quick answers from here. And yes, I am going to go back into the YouTube comments and get some of those real fast too. This is a flurry from Dog KC. How's the punter looking?
He's good, mate. He's good.
All right. Will Georgia be kicking it through the end zone all year, or were we spoiled last season?
We're not as good at that at this point, but we're getting better at it. But he had Thunderfoot there and Jake Kamara. I mean, he was just money in the bank.
Alabama's offensive weapons and offensive line, upgrade or downgrade this year?
I think their line's still a little suspect, but based on what I've read about them, they lost Evan Neal, their best player. We lost Sawyer and Schaefer, but as far as receivers, our best receiver is listed as one of our receivers that we would have been one of our best is listed as their best, and they got a transfer from Louisville who's really fast, and they got a couple young guys that they're really. I tell you, somebody you got to watch for them is that second team quarterback. I watched him the other day in the spring game. That Milrow kid, 6'2", 215, looks like Jason. Looks a lot like Hurts.
I'm logging off because you're going to talk about backup quarterbacks at Alabama. I don't need that stress, Coach.
No, I'm just saying though. I mean, I was not glad to see him.
Oh, no.
He's going to help them. He's a good player, and then they got the kid from Tennessee that was highly recruited. But it's going to be. I mean, we'll have to see how it rolls out, but their defense will definitely be better. I mean, you got Will Anderson and Battle and a lot of those players.
Kool-Aid.
We'll see how it works, but we got 12 games to get ready for them.
Can Ohio State have a legit defense in year one due to adding a good defensive coordinator, according to Dog KC, or does it take longer to turn it around?
I think a little bit of the coordination of the defense is important. Players make the difference, though, but they were just schemed out. You look at the Oregon game last year, they had no run support into the boundary, and they just killed them. It's just a technical error there. I mean, just you got to have somebody playing option football in the boundary against a good option team, and they just got schemed out, and then they lost a lot of confidence, and then got killed by Michigan. So they made the change, brought in Jim Knowles, who's a lifer. I mean, the guy was a head coach in the Ivy League for a long time, and then he got his break and got a chance to coach at Oklahoma State and had some good players, particularly in the secondary, and they took a lot of chances. And, hey, Oklahoma State, any way you look at it last year, beat Oklahoma and Notre Dame in the same year. And that really chaps my butt that they could
I know you're mad.
But, that was a great year for him, and he parlayed that into a really good job late in his career. He's going to be up there with Ryan Day, who, anyway you speak at, is one of the real brilliant offensive coaches in the country. I mean, the guy's had tremendous success with different quarterbacks. He played quarterback for for Chip Kelly at New Hampshire, and then followed him out to San Francisco as a pro coach, and then he got that job working for Urban Meyer, and then took over as a head coach. And they got C.J. Stroud, and they got all those receivers, and they got that great back. I mean, that back is money. Whew. So they're going to be hard to beat, but they got a tough opener. They play Notre Dame right off the bat, and I think Notre Dame plays Ohio State and Michigan right off the bat. So
good for them.
And Marcus Freeman going to find out what it's like to be 0-3 maybe because he lost the bowl game.
Let's mow through some YouTube and Facebook comments before we wrap. I do have one fun question from the Vin at the end. Billy Harley says, please pass along a big thanks to Coach Donnan for making my first Georgia-Florida game a memorable one. It was 1997, 37-17. I've never seen a grown man cry over sports until then. Huge win.
Hey, that's great, Billy. I'm glad you're there. And a friend of mine, Mike Cheek, brought me a picture last week of when that was the fall that they were building my house, and some of the neighbors put the Florida-Georgia score on my house, before they put the brick on, and I forgot about that, but I saw that picture of that score. pretty cool. You know, way to go, Coach. Dogs 37, Gators 17, or something like that.
I love this handle. Dayne Young tolerates Nickelback asks, how are we feeling about Javon Bullard?
Bullard's got some good love in the spring. It didn't say general manager. It just said
This is a joke from the Sunday show that I was on with Paul, and Roddy joined too, and Jason Butt was on there. But Dayne Young tolerates Nickelback.
They had to take their name to do that.
All
I
right,
said
well,
it. So congrats to them.
Bullard, Ja'Cory Thomas, they're going to get in there, but I think Stark's got a little head start on them as far as ability. But you got Jackson and Smith. We got a lot better situation at safety now. And then, of course, Tyke Smith. There's a paradox there. Is he going to play star or is he going to play safety? So Poole or Jackson, depending on which one he plays, is going to have a dogfight for his job.
Scott Setliff says, hello, Coach, from Herd Nation.
Herd Nation, this is coming in from Marshall.
Yeah, that's the only Herd I know.
What did he say?
Just said, hello, Coach. Jim Donnan from Herd Nation. Scott
Hey, glad to
Setliff.
hear from you. Nice to hear. Have you heard anything? No, go ahead.
Foster Moss asks, how is Lightsey doing? EJ Lightsey.
Well, you know, he had that injury in where he had an unfortunate deal where he was shot, and then he got here and he hurt his knee a little bit. So he's still a little bit behind the 8 ball. He and Marset have some injuries that are keeping them back a little bit, but he's very fast. I think he'll have to be special teams because he's missing too many reps.
We did see him going up against Savon Clark today, trying to cover Savon Clark, and he got beat on it. But his knee coach, who was right there to talk to him about how to fix that, Glenn Schumann.
Okay, good job, Glenn.
Dodge County Dog says, thanks for doing this time frame. I actually get to watch live. My grandparents live down in Cary, so thanks for watching down there in the Eastman area.
Good job.
Trent Stevens says, just want to say thank you, Coach, for doing these shows every week. It's great to hear your perspective. He says, if you ever want a home cooked meal in Athens, you're welcome at his house anytime.
Okay, where do you live? Hey, Roddy's tired of feeding me. You know, when I first lost my wife, I had a lot of ladies dropping off casseroles over here. They haven't been doing that much anymore.
Yeah, we need to run put out the casserole bat lights, you know, like they do for Batman. Picture of a Corning dish, you know. Hey, Coach eats a casserole.
I don't know if when they drop it off, you're supposed to ask them inside or what the deal is. So I never did invite anybody in, so maybe that's what I was losing on. So go ahead.
All right, this is the final.
Delirious at this time. What is it, 9 o'clock?
Yeah, well, I was saving the best for last because I saw this question, and you may not have a decent answer for it, Coach, but I at least have to find out. It's a longer question. This is from Rex Farrell over on the Dog Vent. He says, Coach Donnan, the Hall of Fame NC State basketball coach Everett Case back in the 1950s would start every year with a team meeting demanding that if players were caught hanging out at the Players Retreat, it's a bar near campus, that they would be kicked off the team for the rest of the year. After the team meeting with the players, Case would tell the assistant coaches not to go to the Players Retreat bar during the season because he didn't want to have to kick any players off of the team. He says, being a star quarterback at NC State in the 60s, give us your best Players Retreat story. And for Dogs fans who are unfamiliar, the Players Retreat is very similar to the Nowhere Bar or Pool Hall, cheap drinks, etc.
Well, there's no way you can top this story on the Players Retreat. I mean, we had 2 guys that lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that needed to go home for Christmas. And they were trying to figure out they couldn't get a bus. They couldn't do anything. And they had this one guy that was their friend. But they told the friend that they need to borrow, hey, we need to borrow your car. And so he took the car, and he thought they were just borrowing the car for a little while. And they drove up to Pittsburgh and came back after Christmas break. So
What?
That was a Players Retreat story. I mean, this guy looking for his car there up in Pittsburgh with it. So that was a classic. But, guy goes into a bar. Guy goes into a bar with his car and the guy's leaving. So they were up on the balcony and said, "Hey, can we borrow your car for a minute?" And he said, "Yeah, here it is." They've been took it off.
That's like straight out of Animal House.
Hey, that was and another guy that used to hang out with Players Retreat all the time was just a really good guy. But he was not a very good player, but he was, always had all these stories and everything. Well, he went home for Christmas, Easter break, I think, and he was riding back on the plane with this elderly lady who was a nice lady, and she was talking to him. Well, you're a football player, and blah blah blah, and they started talking. And he said, yeah, and she said, what do you think of the coach? And he said, well, I don't like him. He's not much of a, he doesn't treat me right. I haven't got to play much, blah blah blah. And then when they walked off the plane, Coach Edwards was saying hello to his wife.
Oh my God.
So that, needless to say, he never got a chance from that rest of the time. And,
Well, I thought that was a good question to end the show on.
And did I tell you the Roman Gabriel story on the Players Retreat?
No, but I'm going to hear it now.
Well, Roman Gabriel, I just saw where he was 82 years old, and he was a great quarterback in the pros and at NC State, 5 years ahead of me. And back in the days, they used to have a training table on Sunday night. And when Earl decided that Earl was our coach, that he wanted the married players to come over there and eat and watch tape or film of the games. And so the players would come over there. And so Earl gets up in front of the team and says, I don't think it's fair for the married players to get a check for their money and get to eat here. So we're going to start taking money out of your checks for you eating on Sunday night. And without even blinking, Roman stands up and says, no, you're not. And just like that. And nobody ever talked back to Earl. And Earl said, well, we'll discuss it later. So Roman stood up to Earl, and that was it. So that's a lot of player retreat stories for you. So the rest of the world knew when they went over to Players Retreat on that Sunday night, everybody's giving Roman, hey, how could you stand up to Earl like that? All right.
I love that. That's a good story.
I've been doing this show for a few years. Y'all done it longer than me. I get these new stories from Coach every time. Like it's what makes it special.
You should drive him to South Carolina to speak to a Bulldog club over there. My one regret, I'll be on my deathbed. I'll be like, damn it, I should have had a recorder going the whole time Coach Donnan was talking.
Where was that?
When we went to South Carolina, he spoke to the Bulldog club over there.
Oh, yeah, that was down in
not Bulldog Club, Touchdown Club.
Anderson, yeah.
Thank you. Touchdown Club. My apologies.
Talking about Frank Howard.
Yes.
We went to the game down there, and Frank came over to our practice. And, y'all aren't going to run that scissors play, are you? Our boys are up there working on it right now. This is the coach of another team, and we're out there practicing. And he called Coach Edwards midnight. He said, the only time I ever see you is after midnight.
I love it.
All right, sports fans. Well, I hope everybody liked this 9 o'clock show, 8 o'clock show.
That'll be 9:30 if we don't wrap it.
Yeah, we're going to have to go. But, yeah, that barely did. We got a ton of people watching the show today. That's insane.
Good. I'm glad they did. How many subscribers you up to now?
We are up to almost 28,000. We're the biggest Georgia YouTube site out there, and I'm giving you zero credit for that, Coach.
I don't deserve any. You guys do all the shows. I just come up for this one. But we are going to have that Around the League show, aren't we?
We are bringing it back for the fall. It'll be our third season, where me, you, and Brent Rollins talking about SEC football. A couple sponsorship opportunities there if people want to hop in.
Yeah, we could use one or two more.
Speaking of, we may have a new sponsor for this show from Prime Shrimp. So I'm checking them out. I got some shrimp to bring you, Coach. If you like them, then we'll bring them on as a
shrimp. Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I love shrimp.
So y'all stay tuned, and we'll see if we can get some sort of a promo code from them, at least for our watchers. So anyway, folks, want to say shout out to everybody who watched the show today. Big thanks to Athens Ford, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, and Dead Soxy. If you like this show, please hit up our advertisers and let them know that you heard about them from the UGA Sports Live podcast with Coach Donnan. It means a lot to us. Anyway, we will be back next Tuesday with more insider practice.
This guy asked me why I didn't tell a joke. I did have a Bill Clinton joke, but maybe we'll just wait till next time.
Yeah, we'll hold off until next time, Coach. No,
I forgot to tell it, so I'm sorry.
No, we'll have to put in a joke of the week with Coach Donnan in there. But you told so many good stories that had us laughing. Those are pretty good too. Anyway, tune in next Tuesday, folks. We will see you then. Take care.